Why you suck at weightlifting. So harsh title, yes, but it's not to rag on you. I'm here to help and hopefully illuminate the dark and painful road of weightlifting. Sucking at something, it implies an opposite exists. It suggests that you can be good. There are two kinds of good in weightlifting, relative to your own potential and relative to everyone else in the world. The variables we'll discuss here thankfully apply to both. When we consider mastery of any endeavour, there exist a multitude of inputs that affect the outcome. We can characterise these into two kinds of variables, the controllables and the uncontrollable. Let's start with the uncontrollable ones first and get those out of the way. The first major hurdle is that your genetics are what they are. Now, they could be incredibly well suited to weightlifting, or they could be what any OG listener of the podcast will know as lacking in strawberry jam. The phrase comes from the idea that no matter how much strawberry jam you add to a jar of dog shit, it's still dog shit. The dog shit being the lifter and the strawberry jam being PEDs. Ultimately, whatever your genetics are, there's nothing practical you can do right now to change them. We're looking at you, CRISPR-Cas9. Take solace in the fact that your genetics might only be shit when viewed through the lens of weightlifting, whereas when you look at them through the lens of being a brain surgeon, you might be the GOAT of all brain doctors. Take further solace in the fact that, statistically, you have a good chance of being pretty alright at weightlifting. You won't be Liu Xiaojun, but you also won't run the risk of being stuck at a 1.2 bodyweight squat forever. Sorry if anyone's stuck at that. Temper this newfound solace, however, with the fact that Ilya Ilyan's first coach pronounced him as the one he's been waiting his whole life for when Ilya walked into the gym as an 8-year-old. The second uncontrollable or unchangeable is that you probably started too late. If you didn't start weightlifting with a single-digit age, or at least with a teen at the end, you're on the back foot from the get-go. This doesn't mean you can't improve or progress, but it certainly makes it very hard to reach the elite level. The problem with starting late is that many environmental factors as well as biological factors have taken hold. If you haven't been training your whole life and suddenly at 33 you want to snatch, but you can't do a bodyweight squat, it's hard to deny that had you started at 13, you wouldn't need to spend the next 12 months working on getting below parallel with a snatch. Tendons and muscles are less elastic due to lack of training. Whatever percentage of fast twitch fibers you might have are rapidly fading, and your brain's ability to soak up skills is being dammed up by the fact that you have a 40-hour work week to get through first. All these negatives aside, there's far more things that all weightlifters need to consider, even the elite ones, that you can control too. The first actually plays into starting too late variable, and it's that you just haven't been trained long enough. One of the major reasons you're not where you want to be is that you simply haven't been training weightlifting for long enough. Weightlifting asks you questions that are answered in 5-year blocks. For example, you might think you're a squat jerker after 6 months, but really, unless you spent at least 5 years split jerking, you just can't make an accurate guess at what you really are. One of the benefits of starting early is that you could have 10 years of weightlifting by the time you're 21. Weightlifters typically peak between 12 and 17 years of training with increasing weight classes, with the asterisk that you're training intelligently. While it might be a little harder to get those 10 years of training if you're only starting at 21, it'll still take 10 years to really see what you're made of. Many of your problems will be answered with more time spent well for sure, but more time spent training cannot be sped up. Put your current training time into perspective. You might feel frustrated, you might feel slow progressing, but you really can't see the forest for the trees until you've done your time. So relax a little and keep training. This brings us along nicely to the second point. You stress too much about training. It might sound surprising that this features, as we often hear athletes of the highest caliber being obsessed. But many of the greatest athletes we've met hold a mindset that is similar to a gentle paddle boat rowing down a calm river. Whereas many of the less well-developed athletes are akin to a whitewater raft in a hurricane-trashed river full of crocodiles. Yes, you need to be obsessed and dedicated, but you need to channel this aggression into productive and calm actions. Great athletes get frustrated too and want it as bad as anyone, but the best calmly look to what negative event may have happened, then put a plan into place to correct it. They didn't commit to this and think no more of it. Too often we see inexperienced athletes shit the proverbial bed over mundane issues of weightlifting. It's supposed to be hard. The technique is fluid and takes years to keep and hold. Calm the fuck down. You don't need to run through 6 different setups every session with 8 different cues. Don't get upset at just one bad session. Look at what the issue might have been and go calmly from there. You might think, oh, this can't be as big of an issue as you're making it out to be. But I've been lucky enough to see hundreds of weightlifters train, and for many amateurs, it's a killer. Here's an example that I bet many of you can relate to. You're training, you're doing some heavy singles, you hit 90% and you feel amazing. You decide it's time to go for a max and you smash a new PB. 6 weeks later, you're still training and you see a max out at the end of the week. Now begins the next 5 days of you vibrating into a terrible session. You've already missed the weight 5 days out. By the time you get to the session, you can't even hit 85% after a good taper when you should be fresh. You missed this because you didn't control the mindset. You didn't approach the session like it's your job. You need to learn how to control yourself and your mind. Be a calm and rational assassin. Don't train with the mind of a toddler. If every session is as maladaptive as the max out session, you'll see that when you zoom out and look over the course of your whole training career, if you look at those 5-year blocks, you'll see that a lot of those negative sessions really do add up. Whereas if you'd had a lot more productive sessions, they would also add up, but also add to your total. The third variable I want you to work on is acquiring the right information and then applying it. Sounds simple, but what this should be in reality is getting a good coach. Notice I didn't say coach. I very specifically said get a good coach. In some cases, being coached by someone who's no idea what they're doing is worse than self-coaching. This one comes from a place of logic, but also of experience. All the best weightlifters have been coached from day one, and I want you to really commit to this idea that you would progress much smoother and faster if you have a good coach by your side. Thinking you can figure out weightlifting by yourself is like thinking you can start Formula 1 driving alone and not end up in a fiery ball of plastic. A coach can help you avert disaster and implement good technique that will last you a lifetime of lifting while ensuring smart and safe progress. If you want to snatch 120 kilos, it's going to be a whole lot easier to listen to someone who's guided 10 other lifters to it than if you follow your own untried plans. Now, I know some of you listening to this are thinking I can't afford a coach or there's no good coaches near you, and I can certainly emphasize with this, but unfortunately this is the reality of it, and if you want to be better, having a coach or someone helping you will improve these chances. Finally, it's the elephant in the room, but it does bear talking about it as it's synonymous with weightlifting. The final reason you're not at Worlds is you're not on performance enhancing drugs. Now, I'm very, very definitely not telling you need to go take gear, but it's an unfortunate reality that PEDs make a significant improvement to lifters' progress. It's unfair if left not mentioned, as this is necessary to being an elite weightlifter, as it is to have good genetics, start at the age of 10, or be coached by a person who's guided others to Olympic gold. That aside, here's the 3 key takeaways. Train longer, train calmer, and train smarter, and you'll get much closer to your goal. I promise you this.